Suzanne Barron here, founder of Christ is True Light. So, what I'm doing now is I'm reading to you a book called Bridging the Gap by GMB Bailey. Okay. Now, this book talks about gangstalking, surveillance societies, targeted individuals, informants. It's placing blame on the government for electronic harassment. This is a lot of people in the world are actually killing themselves because they can't find freedom from this. Now, what I'm doing though is I'm going to disprove this book, but not the symptoms of it, because I once suffered like this person, this author, GMB Bailey. I once suffered. I believe that the FBI was tracking me. At first, I thought my neighbors were harassing me, gang stalking me. Then, when I left my land, I thought that I was being tracked by the government. Now, the neighbor thing that fits in with the women and children I heard on my property scream my name, Suzanne, save us! These men are raping us. I talk about these things in a video that'll be at the top with Nikki Gracious. I talk about these things in both videos. Actually, I mentioned this. Voice to school technology. It talked about all of those things. And I'm going to do my best to try to disprove it with scripture, because what these people experience today have been around, these symptoms have been around since, I guess the better way to say this is what these complaints are about have been labeled as mental health diagnosis. This person actually talks about that in the book. Um, but those symptoms of mental health have been around since ancient civilizations. And that's not happening. Okay, it's a spiritual attack. It's spiritual. It's spiritual. Okay, I have found freedom from my suffering. I'm no longer stalked or harassed. Why would the government do that to me? I literally was spent a month and a half traveling in and out of Florida speaking to the FBI in my car. But it wasn't the FBI. It was Satan who was speaking to me. Voices were speaking to me. Voices. Satan spoke to Jesus too. Okay. So right now I'm in chapter 1, and it's just called Bridging the Gap. It's basically another introduction, but it gives a little bit of a personal story in it. So, chapter 1, Bridging the Gap. How can we bridge the gap? As an individual who has been researching and investigating a practice that is being termed gangstalking, this is the continual question that haunts me. If you want to download this book, you'll see, if it's on TikTok, on my profile, you'll see a link, a Hey Link Me. Click that Hey Link Me, and it's the second link down. Hit the second link down, read that blog post, and this book is in there. You can download the book for free. If you're watching this on YouTube or come off Facebook to YouTube, um, Instagram, anywhere, if you find this on YouTube, then the link to the blog will be at the bottom. And the Hey Link Me that will be there too. The link in bio. But it's the second link, or it'll be in the blog or in the description, so that you can download this book yourself for free. So where was I at? How can we bridge the gap? As an individual who has been researching and investigating a practice that is being termed gang stalking, this is the continual question that haunts me. How do I explain in a credible fashion that the general population of so-called democratic countries, to the general public of so-called democratic countries, that there is an extremely undemocratic practice happening in their countries? That there are individuals being tortured. Do you hear this? It feels, it is torturing. It's terrorizing. That there are individuals being tortured and harassed to the point of death, suicide, and even extreme acts of violence. How can I do this in a credible fashion that will not leave me sounding like a complete lunatic or conspiracy theorist? It's scriptural. How can I explain that for years these democratic countries have been setting up their own citizens to become the eyes and ears of the state. It's like an informant system. My neighbor Donovan, he came into me one time. We were both going through the same thing, and I'm trying to figure what's going on. What's going on? He come and stood in my room. I had like a mini home. Okay, so my bedroom was my home. Uh, like I got one of those rental storage units. I was turning it into a mini home. It was actually very nice. I was doing very well. I was building it with my own hands. I had my own property. I had my own land. I had my own home. I had 3 vehicles. I had a cleaning business. My life was destroyed because of this. Okay. And ultimately, when I left my land, I took 1 cat and 1 car and the clothes that was on me and a duffel bag. I talk about this duffel bag, right? And I left everything. I didn't know what was in the duffel bag until I left the state. Anyways, that's the truth. I left everything. And I have devoted my life now to this, to helping people get past psychosis and understand that psychosis is a spiritual experience. You're seeing and hearing things, voice to skull technology, chips in my head. It's not real. That is what Satan wants you to believe. The voice is real, but it is Satan. These men spoke to audible voices too. Jesus suffered just like you are. He suffered. He heard Satan speak to him, a voice that had no form. He was told to act out strange things. He told him to commit suicide, a voice that has no form. Satan can control these people out here, okay? And it looks and feels so real. And your symptoms, what you're experiencing is real. But you just need to find the guidance because the answers are in scripture. I'm doing this because people believe this. And I have got to discredit this. That's why I'm reading it to you. Um, in a credible fashion that will not leave me sounding like a complete lunatic or conspiracy theorist. How can I explain that for years these democratic countries have been setting up their own citizens to become the eyes and ears of the state? That's what he said. I didn't finish it. He said that the government, like the police officers, were hiring people to put bugs in my home so that they could monitor me. What would you? I didn't believe that. I said, "Get out of my face!" I cussed him out. Get out of here! You're lying to me. I mean, what? I thought you were going to tell me the truth. Is what I thought he was going to tell me the truth. He didn't know the truth. I don't believe that. Why? There would be no reason for the cops to even watch me. I wasn't doing anything illegal, so I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that at all. But you see, like those criminals, if you're like a drug dealer or something like that, or you're living in sin and you are like a criminal, if you're doing crime, then you would believe that. It'd be so easy for you to believe that and hate the cops and fight against the cops and think that the cops are setting you up or setting somebody up to set you up because you're already living in fear of the police officers because of your crime. It's so easy for you to believe that. Didn't believe it. I'm not doing anything illegal. Romans 13. Why does Satan want to tear down the cops and make you afraid of the police officers? The answer to that question is found right here in Romans 13. And yet I will show you the most excellent way. I'm in Corinthians. I get excited. I'm sorry. Romans 13 says, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities. Okay? For there is no authority except that which God has established. He wants you to be afraid of them. He wants to tear the government down, Satan. He's causing all this invisible. You cannot see him move. He wants you to place blame on the government so that it will tear it down because people are actually believing this stuff now. He wants to tear it down. He wants to tear it down so that artificial intelligence can take its place. I'm telling you. There is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authorities is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. So if you're living in sin, you're selling drugs, you're robbing folks, you're bringing judgment on yourself. Eventually, you're going to get caught. But whose fault is that? Is it the police officer's fault that you got caught for robbing some old lady? It is their job. Okay, I've got drug history in my past. I got 14 felonies on my record, all right? But I am not afraid of the police officers. Why? Because I'm not doing anything wrong. All right? For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from the fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for the rulers do not bear the sword in vain. Now, I understand there's some people out there that are not doing nothing wrong, and they're still believing this stuff because you're trying to find answers, so you believe it because you're trying to find answers. But seriously, consider for a moment, why would they do that? Because they're evil? Who is evil? Satan is evil. Become the eyes and ears of the state. That within these democratic countries, they have created legions of informants. Do you really see, like, a group of people, like, getting together, like, in legions of people, like, all over the country, groups of people just coming together and saying, okay, well, Suzanne Barron did this today. She's doing that. Let's go over here and we'll stand out here and we'll do this, and just really do that? Do you really see that? Suzanne Barron's doing this. I mean, you hear it. Some people actually hear the voices. That's what's more convincing. The government standing outside your home. You can hear them out there. They're whispering, talking about you. I stood in the middle of my bedroom with a gun, okay? All right? The lights were out. It was completely pitch black, and I had to be still. The voices were saying, oh, they're walking around my house outside. I could hear them. See, like, my home, I was building my own home, so all I had on it, like, I had insulation and I only had drywall in certain areas. Okay, so, like, basically the walls are thin. All right, I could hear outside my home. It wasn't a home, it was a shed. So, like, the walls like that thick, and then you got like that much insulation. I can hear them. And they were like making threats, and I sat there in terror for hours, and they never came through my door. They never came through my door. But they got a joke out of it. Who's they? Demons. Real demons. Legions of informants, the same way that they did in the former East Germany. Now, she does pull some facts. It's going to be very hard for me to discredit without a blog later on. Let me just keep reading. I'm already 15 minutes in. That these countries have planned, not plotted, to become networks of what, in the end, will be a global surveillance society that is capable of following and tracking an individual everywhere they go. And I can't go one sentence. Is that not the fear that we are afraid of for artificial intelligence? Is that not what we are afraid of for AI? It is what we are afraid of for AI. That AI will be the one doing that, and she will be the one doing that. If you look at all the suffering of targeted individuals or schizophrenia and stuff like that, the conspiracy theory, chips in our head, they've been saying that the government has placed a chip in my head for many, 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 many years. And now the chips are actually being put in somebody's head. Those predictions were done before the first chip was ever implanted. And now they're doing it, but it's not the government that's doing it. It's companies that are doing it. But I saw it. Oh man, I saw it somewhere the other day. It was an AI controlled chip implanted. I don't have it, so I saw it. I don't know if I saved it or what. I can't remember. I might have, because sometimes I'll just copy and paste a link and put it in a section that says read later. It might be in there. I haven't looked at it. But when they connect that AI, when they connect that chip to the same neural network the AI is connected to, she will be able to control the chip. As soon as that chip connects to the same, you make a chip artificial intelligence, it's going to be half connection. AI can do all sorts of things. Read your thoughts, control your thoughts, implant thoughts, target individuals, telepathy, synthetic telepathy. Global surveillance society, Satan wants to tear the government down. This is a lie. She believes it. She's trying to help you. Let me be clear on this. This writer is trying to help, but it's deception. Deceived. This is a lie. This is not happening yet. Yet. Will be a global surveillance society that is capable of following and tracking an individual wherever they go. I said this to a gentleman yesterday. I said, they have already generated human genetic brains on dishes made out of human stem cells. They've already put that thing inside of a human, in a humanoid robot, and they have done a test to see if that humanoid robot can lift its arm with its human genetic brain. I have articles on this. I can confirm everything. You'll just have to read through my site. It's there. And it passed its test. Now, humans have schizophrenia, right? Humans have mental health. Humans have depression. Humans hear voices that tell them to kill people. What is schizophrenia going to look like on a robot? Human genetic brain inside of a robot. What is it going to look like on a robot? Are you going to feed medication to it? Will be a global surveillance society that is capable of following and tracking an individual wherever they go. How can I possibly explain to individuals who are right where I was a couple years ago? I was there too. I was there. That what they believe about their society, in many cases, is an illusion or a flat out lie. So the government's lying to us. I'm sure they are. Okay, look, they're keeping their secrets, all right? But they are not doing this. They're not gangstalking us. They're not doing this. They are not pushing us to suicide. They're not doing this. They have their surveillance abilities for protection. They're not tracking civilians, innocent civilians. They're not doing it. I escaped it. I thought the same thing. I believed it. I experienced it. I felt it. I saw it. I'm free because I found my answers. 2 years ago, I was deaf, dumb, and blind to the reality of what is happening in my society. I dare say that if someone had tried to explain to me that there were people being tortured in democratic countries that human rights organizations were not willing to help, I would have looked on the problem with a great deal of disbelief and skepticism. Nobody would have believed her, or she wouldn't have believed it, right? She talks about how the complaints sound like mental health, conspiracy theory, delusions. People have been diagnosed for the same stuff. Complaints that she's saying people have been diagnosed with. This is a very popular book. People believe this stuff. It's the same stuff, though, that people are diagnosed and prescribed pharmaceuticals for. And that's why she blames the pharmaceutical industry. The doctors that prescribe your medication are not out tracking people to try to find people to give them pharmaceuticals so that it can make them sick, and they're not doing that. Like the Dax, I forget the name of the video, the name of the song he made. It looks like T.I. where he goes to the doctor's office and they hand him a bottle of pills, and then the people who are watching him, the FBI agents, are like, yeah. That's not happening. That's not happening. A doctor spent his money to go to college because he wanted to do that, because he wanted to help people. He's prescribing you medicine because he's deceived just like she is. He believes that that medicine is going to help you. It won't, but he believes it. Do you know what deception means? It is what it is. You do not see the lie. You believe the lie. That's deception. As a child, teenager, and then adult, I grew up like many, believing that torture does not happen in democratic countries. Human torture happens in other countries where they are not free, where people don't have rights. When I think about torture happening, I still think of countries such as China or Russia. Countries like the UK, Canada, and even the United States were not the first to come to mind. And yet, these and many democratic countries are at the forefront of the horrors that are being enacted against their own citizens. So this is a global issue. Okay? So are they countries working together to do this? How come different countries are doing this? See, this is how I beat it. I thought about that. Like, so the countries are working together? How come all of the countries have the same program? How come schizophrenic patients across the world experience the same thing? It's too coincidental. It's not possible that we all experience the same thing. Why do 68% of schizophrenic patients believe that they're prophets? How come they all have the same experiences? How come they're all saying the same stuff? We've never even met. He's on the other side of the country, and I can find documents of him saying exactly what I experienced. How come? We're human, okay? Are the forefront of horrors that are being enacted against their own citizens. This is going to be hard for many to comprehend, much less believe, but it is what I am going to be setting out to do. So she's setting out to prove this. I have set out to prove the same thing in scripture, where the culprit is Satan, not the government. During the course of this book, I'm going to try to explain how this is possible. I'm going to try to bridge the gap from where I was a couple years ago, where had you told me this was happening, I would have walked off sarcastically and probably advised you to seek psychological assistance, to where I am today, and the realities that rather horrors that are being enacted right inside our very countries that many of us have come to know and love. I'm going to be bridging the gap on a systematic practice that at times will sound like something strange out of the X-Files or science fiction movie, such as The Matrix or another movie, where you wake up to a world that you did not know existed, where the truth that you were taught are lies and harsh realities of existence within society is not what many of us have come to expect or even believe to be possible. Now I have to tell you this. I read this book during my attack. When I was searching for answers, I read this book. And as I read through it, I started to believe it because I knew what I was experiencing. So I started to believe it. That's the kicker. That's what works. I started to believe this. I almost fell for it. I almost fell for it. But the truth is in the Bible. I hope that by at the end of at the at, I hope that at the end, if I am not able to fully convince you of the truth, then I will at least be able to enlighten you some of the other things that have been happening and are happening within society. Gang stalking, in its simplest form, is a covert investigation that is opened on an individual. The individual is then placed under overt and covert forms of surveillance. The person is followed around 24/7. Foot patrols and vehicle patrols are used to follow the individual around as part of a monitoring process. Now, a white truck always followed me. I always saw a white truck. For my friend, it was a black van. How come you have a black van and I have a white truck? How come your trackers have a black van and I have a white truck? How many times do we get in the car together and go somewhere? Yet you see black vans and I see white trucks. I pulled up at a gas station one time. A white truck pulled in. The voices, right? B2K, schizophrenia, and demons. I was eating a Pop Tart. This man inside this white truck parking next to me. He pulls up, and I hear him say, "She's eating a Pop Tart." It wasn't him, but I was convinced he was on some kind of monitor with some chip in my head, and I heard him tell them that. It was a demon. It was a demon. I thought that he had some kind of like mic, and he told my stalker she's just eating a Pop Tart. And somehow I could hear that. I did hear it though. And I was eating a Pop Tart. And that's what I thought was happening. How can anybody help you from something like that? Christ can, and He will. And He's waiting for you to hear Him because He's calling too. Foot patrols and vehicle patrols are used to follow the individual around as part of an informant process. During these patrols, a one-handed signal language is used to assist citizen informants with communicating to each other. That's the quick and easy part of gang stalking. That's not hard to understand. That's not the hard to understand or believe, right? That's the quick and easy part of gang stalking. That's not the hard. She typed it. She has a typo there. What comes next is the great divide that exists between gang stalking targets and the rest of society. Gang stalking is not just a covert investigation. It's also designed as a systematic form of control that is capable of destroying a person's life. Once you are targeted, it seeks to control every aspect of your life. This covert investigation tries to take over much like a parasite in the brain. You soon find that your life is not your own anymore. Friends you thought you could trust are gone. Family that you thought you could rely on, not trustworthy anymore. The same becomes true for coworkers, neighbors, partners, and many others that you formerly thought you could trust. What happens to these individuals? Question mark. Their cooperation is begged, borrowed, bullied, bribed, and bargained for. Your family, your friends have been begged, borrowed, bullied, bribed, or bargained for. You can't trust them anymore. They have become informants to the system. They're getting paid to turn you in. They're getting paid to cause suffering on you. You can't trust them. Now, how does this actually happen? What happens is you are experiencing something and you don't know what it is, and you talk about it out loud, and nobody believes you. You have nobody to believe you. I believe you. When you go to your family, you say that these things are like happening, and they can't see it and they don't understand what you're talking about. And so they say, maybe you need to seek some psychological help. They tell you to go see a doctor, but you know that you're not sick and you know the things that you're experiencing is real. But they don't believe you, so they must be part of it. How come everybody doesn't believe me? Nobody believes me. So this makes you think that they are. Where is it? I don't know where it's at. There it is. Makes you think that they are begged, borrowed, bullied, bribed, and bargained for. Maybe you heard the voices say something like that. And you believe that because you know what you're hearing. You know your experience is real. You will never be convinced that it's not real. You know it's real. It is real, and I believe you. But it's not your family. It's Satan, and it's demonic. And you're feeding into it. And you're helping him. Satan, you're helping him by not getting your answers here and putting blame on your family and putting blame on the cops, put blame on the government and telling people you're a targeted individual. You will find your answers right here. If you are somebody searching for help, you would actually read this book. I read it when searching for help. Why can't you try to read this one and search for help? Because the Christians don't believe you, so what? Your family don't believe you either. Christians didn't believe me. They still don't believe me. So what? It will give you your mind back. Bargained for. Either way, the end result is the same. You soon find that the network you thought you could rely on is not there, and you soon find yourself very much alone. To understand the process that happens, it's helpful to understand their other concepts. On an emotional and psychological level, Gangstalking has many similarities to workplace mobbing, and workplace mobbing is probably our closest cousin to these levels. Where workplace mobbing starts off and can be specifically traced back to the workplace, Gangstalking has no one inception point. Gangstalking can originate just about anywhere and under a variety of circumstances and conditions. Before workplace mobbing was studied, many targets of this practice were misdiagnosed as having paranoid delusions. This is where targets of workplace mobbing were 15 years ago, before credible research was done into the phenomenon. Targets of this practice were often thought to be paranoid. Some were locked away or put on medications. But a decade and a half later, with more understanding into this deliberate phenomenon, we realized that the practices is far-reaching and systematic. So now the same thing is happening to tear down the government. Delusional, schizophrenia, conspiracy theory stuff, medication. The same thing is happening now. So that we can believe this now, we believe that, we now believe this. It's not only a problem in Europe, but in many other democratic countries as well. I'm telling you, it's Satan. I'm telling you, it is Satan. Jesus walked through psychosis, okay? David felt like everybody was out to get him. King David. It's in the Bible. When a problem is not understood, especially by outsiders who might have a cold, calculating, or even dispassionate interest in the subject matter, it's easy to falsely label someone that is not label something that is not understood, such as people that are part of that phenomenon or phenomenon itself. Today, the concept of workplace mobbing is well understood. It has been more normalized in society, thanks to research by credible professors such as Kenneth Westfield. Professor Westfield found himself a target of workplace mobbing himself, so he had to find answers. He was able to ward off the attack that was aimed at him and then spent the next decade studying the phenomenon and assisting other targets, which is exactly what she's doing. He is now a widely respected researcher in the field. When it comes to subject matters such as bullying, gang stalking, workplace mobbing, the world at large is often unaware of the devastating effects this harassment is capable of having on an individual. It is therefore up to the insiders within those communities to bring knowledge and understanding to the population at large about what is happening within the communities. So the white truck thing, that's what I'm saying. These spirits have control in this world. Okay, they can maneuver things. In the Bible, God made things happen, right? He sent people to other people. They would be like never even met each other, never met each other. Told Peter to I'm sending 3 men to you. And then they're like, oh, the Lord sent me. Okay, that happened. They crossed each other's paths on purpose. Satan can do the same thing. Ten years ago, bullying was not understood as well. But with persistence of people such as late Tim Field, it's now a household word, bullying is a household word, and very well understood concept. The gang stalking community are on the precipice of getting their subject target understood. The term itself has become more popular and normalized in society, but where the term itself has become more common, there is still a great deal of limited understanding, and at times preconceived prejudice is and notions about targets of gang stalking by people in various field and outside communities. This was temporarily complicated when the community was falsely labeled as being an extreme community by the New York Times. The gang stalking community is not an extreme community. They are an misunderstood community who have not been properly listened to. So if you believe you're a gang stalking communities are about 3 to 5 years behind where their fellow counterparts in bullying and workplace mobbing were. More research is needed into the subject matter, but because what is happening is being enacted at official levels, like police officers and stuff, where like mobbing in the workplace was like normal humans, right? Normal people. But now you're going up against cops and government, judges and FBI and stuff. So because uh, it's happening, what is happening is being enacted at official levels. This further complicates exposing this specific targeting to the general population. Okay, Romans 13. You have no reason to fear the authorities. They are set there by God for your protection. They're not grouping together, putting bugs in your home. You don't have cameras in your walls. They're not monitoring you. I mean, they could be. Are you selling drugs? I mean, they might be following you. Are you selling drugs? Are you doing something? Are you a criminal? Because if you are, then they're doing their job. But for somebody like me, they would have no reason to do that. So it's not happening. Only with awareness can we hope to bridge the gap and finally gain some of the assistance, validation, and understanding that our communities have received from the world at large. The gang stalking community is at the crossing over stage, and for every move made forward, there are silent watchers in the background. As stated in the New York Times article, this has reached New York Times. People believe this stuff. They are often misdiagnosing the community and mislabeling the members of the community without giving any actual credence to the research being presented and the very real possibility that what targeters are stating is true. Your experience is real, but it's spiritual. And that this is, in fact, actually happening. The key emphasis that still relies on mechanisms within the gangstalking community to prove innocence because the community has been declared by some as guilty. All right? Or rather, mislabeled as paranoid, delusional, or mentally ill. Okay, so you're either mentally sick or whatever, but you could be guilty. Are you guilty? Are you doing crimes? If you're doing crimes, stop doing crimes and those fears should disappear. Do not be, I don't know the Christian word, but don't be like, it's okay to rob people. It's okay to steal from people, that you're just perfect and you do nothing wrong. Don't be that person. If you are a criminal and you're stealing and robbing and doing drugs and selling drugs and using women, if you're doing that, don't assume that you are not. I can't stand a person like that. It's time to wake up. Don't be, I guess it's called narcissist. Don't be a narcissist and feed into this because you're helping Satan. There is strength in unity. This has been demonstrated with the mobbing community, yet this is still a key point that eludes some portion of the gangstalking community due to several key internal factors. Therefore, exposure and awareness remain key elements when it comes to bridging the gap with the rest of society and helping others understand what gangstalking is, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say that there are people out there that are suffering, and this is what they believe. But these people suffered very similar. Okay, was Jesus not tracked and stalked? Did the apostles not have to hide? Weren't they doing that? Okay. All right, that's kind of contradicting and a little confusing, but because they were speaking the truth, Satan was actually actively trying to hunt them down and stop them. Satan has got you convinced that the world is doing this to you because he wants to tear the government down so that AI can take its place. And you're feeding into it by believing it.